Welcome to the Ferrum Athletic Company podcast. I am your host, Andrea Werner. Myself, along with my business partner, Cheri Mooney, are the co-owners and co-founders of Ferrum Athletico. If you would like more information on us and our business and what we do, visit our website at ferrumathletico.com. You can also check us out on our social media pages at Ferrum Athletico. Now, on to this week's episode. What's up, Ferrumers? Welcome to the Ferrum Athletic Company podcast. I am your host, Andrea, with co-host Cheri. Hey, guess what? You got a promotion. You're now co-host. You're no longer a guest.
No.
Which means you have to be on here more often than like once every 6 months. So today, let's start off by talking about walking, which is what we're doing right now. You and I walk a lot, which is great because number one, it gives us a chance to get out of the gym. Number two, it gives us a chance to kind of work on our health. But let's talk about the benefits of walking and why it's so important, why everybody should do it. Why is walking such a craze right now? If you follow anyone on Instagram who's got anything to do with health and longevity, which is where the fitness industry is heading, we talk about walking. And this really became a thing really starting at the pandemic because nobody could go anywhere or do anything. So everybody spent their time walking, biking. And lots of studies came out about walking. So you have recently had a goal of 10,000 steps a day? No, 20,000 steps a day.
20,000.
20,000.
Only because I can't really work out right now.
Yes. So here's what I'd like for you to talk about for a minute. Number one, how much time does that take out of your day to try and get 20,000 steps?
If I'm working, not as much, but when I couldn't work, and I was walking a lot slower, I would say 2 hours.
2 hours for 20,000 steps. So that's...
When I was walking slower.
Yeah.
But now that I'm walking faster, it takes less time. Now that I'm able.
So you'll go out for a walk in the morning, a walk midday, a walk in the evening.
Yes.
And that hits your 20,000 steps.
Mm-hmm. And then sit on the couch.
And sit on the couch. So when you go for your walk, before you go out for your walk, whether it be around, we'll talk about walking after a meal, but let's talk about this. If you have a lot of stress or you're feeling very anxious, which I've recently talked with my cousin Adriana about, how do you feel before your walk? How do you feel after?
Well, for me right now, my whole body felt better if I walked just because I have so much going on. But definitely now that I don't have as much going on, like in the central nervous system from the accident, it definitely is, it replaces what I used to call a runner's high because I used to run all the time. So I would come home from work. Actually, it started when I come home from school and go for a run. It would help me release the stress of the day. So it kind of reminds me of that feeling. Just being able to go out and like clear my mind, and I come home and I got a little exercise in, a little sweat, and my body doesn't hurt, and my mind is more clear.
And when we're talking about going out for a walk, we're not talking about like light jog. We're talking about walking.
Yeah.
And not
like a
casual
like a
Sunday
16
stroll.
to 18 minute pace.
Yeah, somewhere along in there. Your heart rate gets to be about, what, low 100?
Yeah. Sometimes anywhere from 95 to 105 at that pace.
At the age of 52 is somewhere around, still in your zone 1, not necessarily zone 2.
Yeah, zone 1.
To hit your zone 2, you would need
a bike or a rower.
Or a weighted sled, or...
Yeah.
I don't even think a weight vest gets you into zone 2, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to walk really fast, but that thing bothers my neck, so...
And zone 2 is a totally different type of training, which, like you said, right now for you involves sitting on a sled or sitting on a bike without using your hands.
Yes.
So as far as walking and lowering cortisol and lowering stress is concerned, walking is one of the best ways to help manage that. At the end of a stressful day, you've had a rough day at work or a rough day at school, putting on a pair of shoes and just going for a walk. But everybody in the world, especially when they think about fitness, and they think about lowering their stress level, they think that they have to go out and run 3 miles. Now, if you like to go out and run 3 miles, that's fine. But understand that there's also going to be a toll on your body. You also have to take that into account for your total activity for the week. So when you start talking about wear and tear on joints, walking is very low impact. It helps lower risk of all-cause mortality, especially heart disease. Much safer, healthier way to lower your stress than going out and running 3 to 5 miles every single day after work. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's a lot better on your joints too. Especially if you've done it in the past and you have any other issues, like your hip or your back. It's not healthy for it.
Which also requires, for those of you that are runners, that think that going out and running doesn't require any strength, even if you're a runner, especially a long distance runner, sprinting requires a great deal of muscle mass and fast twitch muscle production and firing, whereas long distance running still requires muscle and strength. I mean, you still have to protect your joints. So there's still things like hip flexors, hamstrings,
feet.
Because
if your feet don't hold up, then everything crushes.
So we're going to jump into strength training and longevity here in a minute, but let's continue with our talk on walking.
As we're talking and walking. Speaking of which, we need to walk a little faster.
Oh, really?
Yes, really.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, this is slow.
Yeah.
So,
beautiful.
Walking after eating. Lots of studies right now on walking after eating and lowering blood sugar. So when we talk about blood sugar, and this is where the conversation of insulin sensitivity also comes into play, and there's a huge difference between insulin resistance, insulin sensitivity. We all have blood sugar. We all have insulin. We all respond to it in a different way. The more muscle mass you have, which, by the way, when we talk about muscle mass, we are not talking about just being a bodybuilder and being massive. We all have muscle. So we hear this a lot from predominantly our older generation of women, that they don't want to put on any muscle. Well, we all have it. If we didn't have any muscle, we would be a big, basically, pile of sludge. We would all look like jellyfish. We all have skeletal muscle.
Well, and back then
it does work.
Putting on muscle was a manly thing to do and makes you look manly.
Correct.
So they were scared of it.
Women have muscles as well. We need them. They're actually a really important part of our overall health as we age and going through menopause and osteoporosis, so on and so forth. However, let's jump back to blood pressure, or blood sugar, insulin sensitivity.
So that's probably why I lost all that weight too while I was down. I walked so much.
Yes, 100%.
So I need to keep doing that.
When your blood sugar goes up, your pancreas releases insulin.
Mm-hmm.
Insulin, I like to tell my clients to think of insulin like the city bus, and your blood sugar like people, and your cells like stores, so to speak.
You could even say it was a muscle.
Yeah.
Like, because it's stored in muscle.
So as soon as you eat, you have a whole lot of people running through your bloodstream. The pancreas sends out a message to the city bus to go pick up all the people. The city bus runs through your veins, picks up all of the people, and transports them to the cells in your muscle tissue. Why this is important is because whenever muscle does its work, it releases glucose, which is sugar. Every time you contract a muscle, you release sugar. When that sugar is released, it has to be replenished. You cannot survive without it. We all need it. If we do not have glucose, we will perish. Where insulin becomes super important after walking, where walking becomes super important after eating, is because when that blood sugar goes up, if you start walking, we start using muscle. The city bus
is working.
Yep. The city bus takes the people
it's driving
to the cells.
Faster.
The cells are immediately working to help lower your blood sugar. Right? So it's all a very efficient system. Where this becomes an inefficient system is when the city bus goes to take people places and everywhere is full. Mm-hmm. And the doors are closed. And your cells are like, we don't need that. The excess gets stored in your liver as glucagon for a rainy day. Once that's full, the city bus has to do something with all these people. So it drives to your hips. It drives to your belly. It drives to other places, and it starts storing it as body fat. This is where things like fatty liver come into play. This is where increased body fat comes from. This is where we get this bad thought process around insulin and blood sugar, because if your blood sugar continues to stay up and you don't have enough buses to transport all of the sugar, now we start talking about type 2 diabetes. Because your insulin can't keep up.
What, say if you're eating a balanced diet, like protein, fat, and your carbs together, mm-hmm. That's going to help. Or do you have to walk less since you're eating a balanced diet? Or
I wouldn't say walk less. What I would say is that your blood sugar isn't going to spike as much as if you woke up in the morning and for breakfast you had toast
let's
with
talk
jelly.
About the city bus right now.
Okay.
So say we ate a balanced diet. We went for a walk.
So let's say your blood sugar
doesn't have to work as hard.
Correct.
That's what I'm trying to get.
You don't need as many city buses.
Right. That's what I'm trying to let everyone understand.
Yes. So when you eat a balanced meal of protein, carbs, and fats, your blood sugar does not go up as much, and you don't need as much insulin to transport. So
if you go for that walk, then it's all in harmony. That is perfect.
Yes. Then you don't live in a spiked blood sugar. Your blood sugar doesn't go through the roof and then bottom you out, which is where that starvation comes into play.
Stays in the middle.
It stays more regulated. Yeah. So what you eat in combination with this healthy lifestyle, which is where you and I have this conversation a lot about, the medical world tells everyone diet and exercise, diet and exercise. The key to a healthier life is diet and exercise. Nobody knows what the hell that means. Right. Nobody knows what it means.
What they need to eat.
Yeah, they don't know what they need to eat.
They think diet food, because that's what the whole industry, low fat.
Yes.
Low carb. They're thinking diet foods.
Pick these.
That they could eat whole foods. They could cook their fish in butter, eat a potato, eat some vegetables.
Yeah. Pick this keto bar. Pick these cereals that have been fortified with protein, which is really just trash in a chemical shitstorm.
Well, and that's going to increase your blood sugar.
Majorly. Yeah. So things that other people don't think about, besides the fact that, okay, what spikes your blood sugar the most? Carbohydrates. Are all carbohydrates bad? Depends on the carbohydrate. We're talking about predominantly processed stuff. As far as like spiking is concerned. So we're talking about
where everyone thinks that the diet food.
Yes. And it actually is stuff that's extremely high in
like Fiber One bars and things like that.
Yeah. Or healthy cereals. Starting your day out with cereal is ridiculous. Starting your day out with protein is much better. It helps regulate that blood sugar better. It doesn't give you that huge blood sugar spike that makes you hungry, I don't know, an hour later for more food, which overall increases your caloric intake for the entire day.
We need to walk faster.
Again?
God. Speaking of calories, we haven't burned that many.
Walking and talking, we actually are much slower when we talk. So we've talked about lowering stress. We've talked about walking for blood sugar. Let's talk about walking
eating a balanced diet.
And eating a balanced diet, which we're going to jump into that even deeper here in a minute when we talk about strength training. Let's talk about walking for longevity. And this is a great conversation because walking is something that everyone takes for granted until you can't.
And then you still need to do it in your 80s and 90s.
Yes. And I think
look at other countries, that's all they do is walk.
Yeah, because that's how they have to get into town.
And then you look at our country and basically at the age of 70, people are not walking.
No. And I will never forget, I went home one year to visit my grandparents, and it was the first time that I'd really seen my grandparents look really unhealthy. Like, wow, this is a major decline. This is not good. And I remember talking to them and saying, why don't you guys just get up and go for a walk? And they both, like almost in sync, looked at me and said, it's easier said than done. And I'm wanting to say at that time they were in their late 70s.
Yeah, that's sad.
Getting ready to be basically almost chair bound or getting around with a walker. Our ability to walk is unbelievably important for our independence because it helps, number one, our strength to be able to go up and down stairs. As soon as you start to notice that it is harder and harder to go up and down stairs, with the exception of falling down your stairs and breaking your finger, that's a totally different story. Just being able to walk up and down stairs, if you find that that is a struggle, that is like sign number one of we've got to address something. To me, sign number two is having a difficult time getting up and down off the floor.
Or even off the chair.
Yeah.
It's like what your grandparents were saying.
Yeah.
You see that all the time. You got to hold on to something to get off the chair and sit down on the chair.
So when we talk about being able to walk in our 70s and 80s, which is something that, oh my God, when we see people in their 30s that just don't, and maybe this was us. I'm pretty sure it was me. If you would have told me in my 30s that I needed to be concerned with one day being able to walk later, I would have been like, listen, with what I do working out wise, I'm great. I'm gold. Solid. Which is a very egotistical thought process. When you start going through your life and you realize that things need to change, your workouts need to change, your food needs to change, your sleep needs to change, your stress management, like everything needs to change.
Yeah, you need to sleep more, work out less, or start working out. Flip side of that, people that don't work out need to do something.
Where would they start? Let's take someone we'll take someone like my grandparents who believe that walking is hard, much less working out. What would it look like for that person to start a fitness routine?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Oh. No, I was asking that guy that was walking by.
Well, I mean, you were talking about being in your 30s and stuff, so
I jump topics.
Starting at the age of almost 80 or starting at the age of 40 looks a little different.
Correct.
Maybe not.
Because I would say that we have people in their 40s that have been through
have a hard time sitting on a chair without flopping.
Yeah.
Or having to lean over and put their hands on their legs to stand up.
I would say pain is a major dictator of this.
Yeah.
So I think about Joyce, who started at the age of 69, who was just walking on the treadmill at the Y when she started. And when asked, hey, what's your biggest fear? And she says, falling.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest fear is falling at the age of 69. She couldn't sit down without basically plopping because she didn't know how to use her glutes and hamstrings.
Yep.
Standing up was hard without holding somebody's hand. So she started that way at 69. Now she's going to be 83 this summer. And deadlifts, squats, step-ups, jumps ropes. I mean, you name it, she'll do it. But go ahead. What does it look like?
What does it look like?
Yeah.
First of all, we have to work on their balance and teach them how to balance through their feet.
Mm-hmm.
So that looks like maybe a single leg stand, holding on to something, teaching them how to use their foot muscles, some walking drills, some arch strengthening, and then the single leg, holding on, and then maybe some controlled squats to something that they can control it to.
Mm-hmm.
Might be, taller than a chair, but teaching them how to do it, how to control it to that object. Probably look like some clamshells if they can do it.
Yeah, and for people that can't lay down on the ground, standing, activating the side of that hip, getting those hips moving. Some
banded work, some banded walks, forward, backwards, sideways, getting the side of their hip, their glutes to work.
Calf raises.
Yep.
Tiptoe walking.
Tibialis raises.
So
and then from there, that object gets a little bit lower when they're able to control that.
And we talk about, when we talk about the functionality of steps, we would talk about step ups.
Mm-hmm.
And they would start on something small, maybe like
a plate,
a 45-pound plate, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Side step ups.
Something about 4 inches tall.
Front step ups, rear step ups.
Making sure throughout this entire process that they understand what muscles are being used. And this is where the idea of fitness changes for people. And
because a lot of times if you have them step up, they're like, oh, I feel this too much in my knee. Well, you got to teach them how to not use their quad and their knee. You have to teach them how to use their glutes and their hamstrings to step down.
And this is where the communication of fitness does not have to just be running and battle ropes. And
this is why a lot of people are scared to go to the gym, because they don't know what they're doing.
Correct.
They don't know what muscles they're working. They're just doing it, and then they're afraid they're going to get hurt. But if you're actually teaching them, hey, this is what you're supposed to use when you step up. You're going to drive through your heel, your knee stays over your ankle, and you go from there. And then they're like, oh my gosh, that's easier. That doesn't hurt.
And the best part about...
like, oh my gosh, no one's ever told me that.
That right there. And the best part about these conversations and this style of getting people moving is that they see this actually transfer into their daily life. They actually see it rather quickly. Like, hey, you know what I noticed? The other day, walking up and down the stairs, it felt a little bit better. I wasn't so out of breath, or my knee didn't hurt, or I actually felt it in my hip where you told me to.
Or my back doesn't hurt when you teach someone how to stay braced.
Oh,
even during the day, teaching a canister core and breathing right. Oh my gosh, my back feels a lot better.
Like I bent over to pick something up and no back pain.
Yeah.
Which is huge. And you don't realize it.
Oh, and it takes practice.
Lots
of practice.
Until you don't feel good. Until
things start to hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you deem yourself in the category of I can't, then that's where the mind takes over and the body just listens. The mind is a very powerful thing. Mm-hmm. And the body will absolutely do whatever the mind thinks about on a regular basis. That's why our thoughts are so important. That's why our subconscious brain is so important, because
it's the same thing with pain.
Yeah.
What I've been taught about pain, like you can put your hand on a stove and your brain processes that it's hot. Your body doesn't actually feel that. Your brain processes, hey, that's hot. All your pain receptors are in your brain.
Hey, that's hot, move your hand.
Yeah.
Oh, got it. So if we're constantly walking around saying things like, I can't walk, I can't step up, I can't. Or, I actually just had this conversation with one of Melissa's clients, Michelle. And the other day, Michelle was like, you have no idea how much you guys have helped my overall confidence through my thought process. She's like, because there's so many times when I walk in here and I look at what Mel has written on the board for us, and I immediately think, there's no way I can do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. She's like, and then I get to it, and I do. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's like, and seriously, almost every single day, there's this conversation of, I can't do this, but you know what? I'm going to try. She's like, and then I do. And it's like, Mel has set me up for this success. And that is our job, is to set people up for success, because everybody has a goal of some sort. Whether that goal is to feel better, improve your overall health,
or have more confidence in just daily life tasks.
100%. You have to believe.
That happens all the time.
You have to believe in what you're doing.
I need to pressure wash my deck or my dock, and that's going to take me a week. Then you start to work out, and then it takes you a couple hours. That's a true story, by the way.
Yeah, that's one of your clients, right? So we've seen this all the time, and it's proven that it works. If people would, sometimes you have to slow down to be able to apply what's being given to you.
Yeah.
Thinking that you have
mind-muscle connection.
Thinking that you have to do everything at 1,000,000 miles an hour, because that's fitness and that's what's going to make you leaner.
Or that 3 to 5 mile run every day.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just eat right and go for 3 short walks, get your blood sugar right, and look, bam, everything's regulated and working great, feeling great.
And here we are,
and you're losing weight.
Here we are back to our conversation on walking and longevity and blood sugar and how this all ties back together. So now let's talk about this
Building
one.
Muscle.
You got it. Building muscle. So building muscle, I love this conversation with people because, number one, everybody thinks that you're going to get huge. Let's just throw out this big disclaimer that unless you are on steroids and you are taking some sort of majorly illegal drug, you're
in the gym 3 hours a day working body parts,
and you're lifting heavy stuff, you will not get huge.
No.
Huge is created in a laboratory and or requires thousands upon thousands of calories a day. One of the two. And I'm going to tell you right now that there's very few people that can eat that. And it's funny, I was actually talking with Chris the one day about this, our Chris. And he goes, that is the worst myth on the planet. He goes, I've been trying for a really long time to get huge. Which is the truth, because we have watched him eating Skittles and all the things.
Just calories.
Just calories. That poor guy is he's trying to put on muscle, because for him, the muscle is, his muscle helps his back and his hips feel better from when he was hit by a car.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to just tell everybody to erase that thought out of their mind that they're going to get huge. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's actually quite the opposite. It takes a long time to build it. But then once you build it, it lasts for you. It helps your body.
So the
Just
conversation
like I'm going through right now.
The conversation of, I want to be leaner so I can see my muscles. first of all, in order to see your muscles, you have to have built muscles. So if you aren't lifting weights in a progressive overload fashion with some sort of time under tension involved with it, it's going to be really hard for you to build muscle that you can see.
Yeah.
Next of all, if you aren't paying attention to what you're eating, and I love this conversation about food because everybody, when you ask somebody about their food, most of them are like, oh, I eat really well.
Mm-hmm.
I eat well. It really is a conversation that falls in line with politics and religion. You can just put nutrition in the same category.
Alcohol.
Yeah, and alcohol. Man, people are possessive of their alcohol. So if you're wanting to put on muscle and you want to see it, number one, you have to lift the weights to do it. Number two, you have to eat the right food. When we talk about eating protein, especially for us as women, as we're aging, protein is unbelievably important. Because for some reason, women, as they age, they just eat less and less and less because they believe that everything's going to make them fat. Part of that is also this amazing thing called menopause that we are all going to go through. You cannot avoid it. You're not going to skip it. We're all going to have it.
Body changes.
Your body is going to change. Just accept it. You're going to look in the mirror one day and say, what happened? And when your body changes, the reason why women gain weight around their midsection is to help protect their organs.
Uh-huh.
It is a natural survival mechanism. And if people would realize that the human body responds to everything as a survival mechanism, they would 100% be able to wrap their mind around lower stress a lot easier. If you realize that the reason why we gain weight is a protective mechanism, the reason why our body shuts us down and makes us sleep is a protective mechanism. The reason why we have inflammation is protective mechanism. And sometimes it's healing, sometimes it's sickness, but it's all there as a survival mode, including our brain. Fight or flight is a survival mode. And the longer that we are in fight or flight, the more basically stressed out we are. The more inflammation we have. The more bloating we have.
Discomfort. So on and so on.
All of that.
Not being able to sleep.
So if we talk about putting on muscle, you're not going to be able to beat your body into submission to be able to have abs. It's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to work out hard enough for that long to be able to be super lean and have abs and see your bicep veins. It's all about what your body is going to be able to handle.
And if all of those points are in line, your sleep, your stress, your nutrition, your training, it all has to jive. And your cup can't filleth over.
Runneth over. If you're putting all your eggs in too many baskets, if you're too spread thin, you're going to have a really hard time.
It's actually a simple process, but it's hard, especially in this day and age.
Simple, not easy.
Yes.
So if we were to talk,
it's a simple equation. It doesn't require a whole lot other than what we just talked about. But to keep all that in check, especially with people's jobs these days and stress of getting kids places, and it's a lot.
So someone walks in the door, starts working with you, and says, Cheri, I really need to put on some muscle. I really want to be stronger. I'm in my late 40s. Let's say I'm 48. I know my body is changing. I've got all this stuff going on. I've recently noticed that, my balance is starting to be a little bit off. My kids are wanting me to do things and I just don't have the energy. I've been seeing all this stuff on social media about muscle health and muscle-centric health and muscle-centric training. So help me.
Help me.
Help me. Help me. What does that look like? What does that person's program look like?
Well, I mean, it all starts with, number one, a conversation of where they're at. Like, first we have to figure out where they're at. Like, what does their sleep look like? What does their nutrition look like? Because you can't outwork that stuff. Doesn't work. I've tried it. So the next thing after that conversation is helping them with their nutrition. And then from there, figuring out their assessment and what we need to start on first. So if it is a balance issue, then we start with some single leg stuff and get them stronger. So maybe we start with that single leg stand, we start with foot drills, we start with some sled pulls, start with step ups. Then we start introducing, once their balance is better and once their strength in both legs feels about the same and no pain. Let's just say this is with no pain, because no pain is going to take a little bit longer.
Correct.
But someone with not a lot of issues. Then we start talking about some progressive overload training.
Okay.
Maybe we start with a leg press, because we haven't really done a whole lot of squatting yet. So maybe we build their legs, leg press, leg extension, their hamstrings, leg curls, some Nordic curls, some reverse sled, some pushing the sled, pulling the sled. Then we talk about maybe some hinging, some safe hinging, maybe with a landmine.
Mm-hmm.
Start with landmine hinging, teaching them how to hinge, because that's where I find most people do not do that correctly.
Correct.
So,
and that comes from our everything forward society.
Correctly. And then, so that takes a little bit longer to build that strength, because you have to teach them how to fire their glutes and their hamstrings without hurting their back. So now we're talking going back to the core. If they do that right off the bat, then you can start progressing pretty fast with the weight. That takes longer because they're not getting it, or they're not taking, their core is taking longer to get strong, then it's going to take a little bit longer. But that's what it looks like.
As far as
definitely progressive overload, though.
And the conversation for progressive overload sounds something kind of like this.
Start with 6 reps, maybe the first week. Start with 8 reps the next week. This is the same movement. Let's just say it's lack of. Let's go with my favorite movement, pull up.
There it is. There it is. I was waiting for an upper body. I can't believe you started at legs.
Well, you talk about balance. So we're talking about this client that wants balance.
That's a good point.
So, of course I'm mixing upper body in with that, but right. I wanted to address that balance issue. That's all you gave me. So.
I set you up for failure on that one. My bad.
No failure.
Okay.
Not failure. But let's just say it's something that I like to do, like pull-ups. And let's say I'm getting back into it after this injury. Maybe I start with a seated pull-up.
Or body rows.
Or body rows, yeah. Well, let's say I've already past body rows. Let's go, because we're talking about progressive overload.
Okay.
So maybe I start the first week with 6. Really strict, slow, controlled, eccentric, 3 to 4 seconds.
Making sure you're feeling it in your lats.
Yes. And making sure everything is right and I'm not using other muscles
to
compensate.
Because
keeping those lats engaged.
Doing work just for the sake of saying that you did work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. No. So if I want to truly get better, then I have to do it right. And that's what I'm going to have to start with when I come back. Make sure the right muscles are firing. And then the next week, so that went well. Next week we do 8. The next week we do 10. The next week we do 12. And this is why I'm saying you're not going to get big, because this takes a long time.
Mm-hmm. And the last week you'll do 15?
We do 12. Next week we do 15. And that all goes well. Then I could maybe move to a banded pull-up. You know, maybe I'll start with a heavy band and start the same thing over. Then maybe I go to a less band. And then eventually I'm going to be body weight. And then eventually maybe I get strong enough, I get it back, and then I can do a weighted pull-up. And then I start the same thing over again.
Yeah, and it's where people have a really hard time with this process is the repetitiveness of it. And you'll hear a lot of people say, well, this is boring.
That's how you know you're getting better.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people will say, well, that's boring. I mean...
Well, you're doing other things as well. Like I would be doing some back accessories. Maybe I do a T-bar row with that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something I could do heavy.
Reverse flies.
You know, and that's my heavy.
Elbow
pull up
row
is my technique that I'm working to get back. Yep, and then you're working the rear delts, you're working the rhomboids. So that's not boring.
No. If you have...
Especially when you're talking about gaining the strength back.
If your goal is to feel your best, which I saw something the other day that I really love, which was when I was younger, I used to work out to look good. Now I work out to feel good. And if your why
and
is
that
to
actually
feel good,
transfers over to look good.
Yeah, it does.
If you're doing it right.
Yes, it does. And then you get both.
The whole thing we're talking about. We're talking about the sleep, the nutrition, the stress, the progressive overload.
Here's a conversation I would like to have, because you and I have been doing progressive overload training for about 4 years now. And 3.
No, I'd say close to 5.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. It was before 2020.
Yeah, it was. Close to 5. And the best we've ever felt. Functionality outside the gym, great. Sleep is better. Body composition better. All of it better. Which is what I love. Like, I love that my body feels as good as it does. And I love that it functions as well as it does.
You never feel overtrained.
And I never feel like I have to eat 50,000 calories in order to recover from something. But here's a conversation that I want to bring up, because I know that there's a lot of people that feel this way when they work out. And they're actually scared to admit it, because, and this fires me up when I read social media posts that are like this. I saw someone the other day make a comment about, I used to train, they did a reel, and it was basically, I used to train at very high intensities all the time, every single day. I used to push myself. And now I've realized that my body feels better, you know, under a progressive overload program with
you're talking about
with a tempo eccentric training.
You're talking about some pretty high level athletes too.
Even just general people that I've had conversations with, which I think you've had conversations with as well. That every time they go into pushing themselves really hard, and I fall into this category. I don't know how you feel about it, but anytime I push my body really hard, the bloating feeling that I have
swollen,
is awful. Awful. Like painfully bloated.
Yeah.
I've talked with people that tell me, and it's funny because when I have this conversation, they talk really quiet because they kind of don't want anybody else to hear it. It's almost like they're ashamed that when they do this high intensity training and they push their body really hard, that they gain weight. Like, shouldn't it be the opposite?
Yeah, shouldn't it be the opposite? Yeah.
Shouldn't it be the opposite?
I've done all this work.
Yeah. And here's where I get passionately upset.
Which works in your 20s.
Because I read through some of the comments on this girl's post, and, you know, I agree with her. I'm right there with her. I'm pushing my body every single day to be better, to be better, to be better, to be better. Eventually my body said, whoa, sit your ass down. I can't do this anymore. Here's some swelling. Here's a rotator cuff. Here's a hip flexor. Like,
things start to hurt. Joints start to bother you.
Everything was hurting. And that's what this girl was saying.
Then you find yourself, well, maybe now I need to do some rehab on my low back because I've been squatting so much. I'm shifting into one leg. Whereas...
So the comments on this girl's reel were basically like, you're doing it wrong. which leads us back to why people, whenever they have this conversation, they start to feel ashamed. Because there are people that maybe either haven't been doing it as long or are ignoring all of those signs, thinking that they're doing okay. They're like, you're doing it wrong. How dare you say that?
Well, you can only do it wrong so long.
Yeah.
It catches up.
There's no reason why your body should feel the way it does. And here's what I'm going to say. We all adapt to things differently. We all handle things differently. We all have different stress levels. We all have different things going on in our life. So to look at someone and say, what you're feeling about that is invalid. To me, that makes me mad.
Yeah, because everybody's different. Yeah.
Just like...
That's that whole social media.
If you were saying, man, every time I deadlift...
Oh, I was there.
It hurts my back.
Yeah.
And
like things that I could pull off the ground, eventually like half the weight would bother it.
Yeah. There were days where I watched you not be able to pick up 155 pounds off the ground.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't move. It wouldn't move. For me to look at you and say, Cheri, that's ridiculous. Suck it up and just pick that thing up off the ground. The way you're feeling is invalid. Your back doesn't hurt. You're just being pansy. You're just doing this whole thing wrong. Something in your body said, no. You can't pick this up today. Similar to going through life stressors. Different things stress us out. Stress each of us out. Whereas something that might stress me out maybe doesn't necessarily stress you out.
That sounds right.
Yeah, which is pretty much the key to our relationship and how this operates.
Yep.
Which is great, because if we both got stressed out about the same things all the time, I'm pretty sure we would
not be around.
Fight a lot more than we do, and definitely probably not still be in business. But whenever you get overly stressed out about something, I listen to what you're saying. If I can help, I do my best to try to help. I try to give you an opposing point of view, but never would I look at you and say, Cheri, that's absolutely ridiculous that you're stressed out right now. It's like, okay, yeah, you're stressed out about that. Let's see how we can fix it.
Same with the back.
Same with the back.
It took a while, but
same with
about 3 months, but
same with people and the exercising that they choose to do in our modern world of an unbelievable amount of stress, which one of the top things that causes us a ton of stress are these stupid cell phones that we all carry around all the time. Because every time this thing dings or vibrates or whatever, we get this small fight or flight response. So if your phone is constantly ding, 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 ding all day long, you're constantly on high alert. Like, holy crap, what's that? Holy crap, what's that?
Who needs me?
Yeah. Now what?
Yeah.
Now what? Now if you add in a lot more stress and just start pounding on your body to be better, be better, be better, eventually it's going to tell you, listen, I've had enough. Which is where we lead back to our conversation of walking.
Yep.
And lowering our stress level
and
again.
Here we are.
And here we are.
Lowering our stress level.
Mm-hmm. And we're still walking.
And getting fit. Lowering our blood sugar.
Lowering our blood sugar.
We just had an apple.
Decreasing our risk of heart disease. Blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Women's health. Things that are coming out in the forefront of fitness and health. And I made a post about this the other day about perimenopause, menopause, and I said in that post, I was like, the perimenopause symptoms are real. If you want to call it a buzzword, I really don't care, because it's a real thing. And the things that I want you to talk about, the things that you experienced, because you went through all of this.
Yeah, there's a long list of things, but doesn't mean you're going to experience all of them. One thing may be just horrible that you go through. Maybe it's the joint pain. And the only thing to alleviate that is your diet and your exercise. That's what they start with. The other thing is more estrogen in your body, which I had to go with. And just to be able to do a lunge on my big toe.
Yeah, because it seems that joint pain starts with the big toe joint.
Yeah, my right thumb.
Your thumb.
Those were the joints that hurt the most. Like, so much that you couldn't even touch them. My estrogen's out of whack like that.
Based off of my blood work that I've had done over the past 2 years.
Some people deal with night sweats that are horrible, I've heard. Some people deal with headaches.
Yeah. Migraines.
Weight gain.
The symptoms that I've experienced would be the brain fog, the shoulder capsule issues, like frozen shoulder, also called adhesive capsulitis. It's funny because for the past, I don't know, we've been going to Dr. Land for what, 10 years now?
Yeah.
Long time. And for, I don't even know, the past however many years, he's looked at me and been like, man, what is wrong with your shoulder capsules? Why is it always your shoulder capsules? All the time. So between those two things, the tiredness, like always just feeling tired. The one thing that's been the big red flag for me, which this started with my mom, from my mom around the same age. I remember my freshman year of college, she came home and she like threw everything away out of our refrigerator. We had a box of lard in our refrigerator and it was the first thing to go in the trash. And my dad thought my dad's eyeballs were going to fall out of his head. Like, what are you doing, woman? She's like,
how are we going to cook our vegetables?
Exactly. What am I going to cook my food in now? She comes home and says, I have high cholesterol. My LDL is through the roof.
What I've had too. Which I've never had in my life.
It keeps going up. So I'm going to do this with diet and exercise. So here's what my mom did. I watched my mom eat what I'm going to call crispy air for a while. She bought fat-free Eggo waffles, but take note, all of this is processed because because
that's what I want from our first conversation. What I say, no one knows how to diet properly. When you say diet, they look at diet foods.
Yep.
Low fat, everything in a box.
Yep.
It says low fat, more fiber.
And at that time,
just eat fruits and vegetables for fiber.
At that time, her doctor actually handed her a piece of paper that said high cholesterol diet on it. And it was basically a no fat, no eggs.
And that's horrible for someone going through.
No red meats, type of diet. So here's my mom buying.
And that's stupid because not everybody's the same when you give someone a diet like that.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
A diet should be individualized.
Yep, one piece of paper for everyone. So here goes my mom to the store.
No protein.
To get her, no protein. Fat-free Eggo waffles for breakfast. Veggie sandwiches from Subway for lunch. Maybe chicken, and whatever vegetables at dinner or whatever we would make. But I watched my mom lose a ridiculous amount of weight. I watched her cholesterol like triple until basically they deemed it as quote unquote genetic and put my mom on Lipitor. And she's been on 10 milligrams of Lipitor for the past 20 years now, 23 years. And that carries its own list of side effects. Here I am at the age of 43. Got my blood work done last year. I did my hormone panel 2 years ago, and then I just did it again this fall. My estrogen has dropped. My LDL cholesterol has gone up. It's almost doubled It went from 85 to 141. Just my LDL. HDL hasn't changed. Overall is fine. Ratio is fine. Triglycerides, totally fine.
And you eat a protein
Protein-loaded breakfast.
Yep. So that's your protein-rich diet. Whole foods, fruits and vegetables, and carb source is usually oatmeal, rice, or potatoes. Correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
With the exception of
and it's still going up.
Still going up.
Yeah.
So it's not like I've suddenly started eating fried chicken. It's not like I've started sitting on my couch and inhaling ding-dongs and ho-hos.
And you walk more now.
And I walk more. I mean, everything
you're
lifestyle-wise.
You walk, you eat the right food.
I've become more aware of my stress and how to handle it. Literally everything has improved. And yet here goes this number from 85 up to 140, which after what we've been reading and studies are showing is that LDL cholesterol is basically a protective mechanism for something else in the body that isn't
working properly.
Going right.
Yeah, which is estrogen in women.
Which is where the estrogen profile comes into play. So I actually have an appointment next week to speak with our doctor about this hormone panel and potentially what my very near future looks like and how to take care of that. Because the last thing I really want is for someone to look at me and say, oh, your cholesterol is going up. We need to talk about a statin.
Yeah, nope.
Not happening.
No, thank you.
Not happening at all. So, Cheri, we've talked about almost everything under the sun now, as we're still walking under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any part of this conversation, anything that you would like to add to close us out today?
I think we've covered it all. If someone wanted to hear a little more in depth on a certain subject, then we can do that. I mean, we just covered some basics.
Yeah, we would love.
But basics work. It's just like Kobe Bryant. Everyone asked him, why do you get places 2 hours early and warm up and things? We're going to warm up. We're going to do that because he likes to go over the basics. He gets bands out. He gets, like what we're talking about, all of that firing first. You can't skip the basics.
You know, I think something that I'd love to add to close this out is that everyone has individual goals. And I would love for anyone that listens to this podcast to contact one of us, one of our coaches, and sit down and have basically a one-on-one goal update session.
And this is what we do. This is what we do with all our personal training clients. And you see some of them come to us anywhere from 2 to 4 days a week. And things change.
Yeah.
And then we have to readdress. Or maybe they're not, maybe something's starting to hurt, or maybe something's just not right in their life and need some help.
And especially
with nutrition. And, you know, we've talked to so many people, and what works for one person might not work for another. And we have ideas that's worked for all of our clients or not worked.
Yeah. Worked or not worked.
Yep. So that could be, you know, something we talk about.
Yeah. So we want to encourage everyone, especially if you're in our group class, to set up a time to sit down and talk with one of the coaches about a goal session and see if there's anything that you need to be doing extra, or that you need to become aware of. Sometimes
or stop doing something.
You know, sometimes having that outside perspective can change it all. So we hope you guys have a great week, and we'll talk with y'all soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ferrum Athletic Company podcast. If you like the show, please leave us a review, share it with your family and friends, share it on your social media platforms. Our mission is to build better humans through the education of health and movement. If this resonates with you, please shoot us an email at forged@ferrumathleticco.com. Follow us on social media, Facebook or Instagram at Ferrum Athletic Co. And we will see you all soon. Thank you for helping us to build better humans.